First step of unwrapping UVs is that you select your object in object mode, and then you go to UV, delete UVs. I also noticed that I still have soft select on, which would cause a problem, so let's not do that. After that, you go to the select tool, go to drag, and then select face. What you are going to do is draw over the areas that you want to be a different color. So if I say this is mountain texture, I'm going to go ahead and get my mountains. Depending, you want to get all of the areas, or at least all of the areas split that you want to be one texture. So you want to use Alt and spin around to make sure you have all of them. And then you can hit Control and Shift to do a plus mode. Some people were getting really strange unwrap results if they left parts of it open, so I know even though you're not seeing this mountain, it may be a good idea to select the part in the back, just so that you have an easier area to draw on. If I accidentally select an area like I just did, I can hit Control, just Control, and it will turn it into a subtraction mode, and I can deselect anything that I might have accidentally selected. I'm going to do a UV planar, and I want to hit the box. What that will let me do is go ahead and select X. This is something I do if I was in a different plane. If your mountains are really high, like Mordor, Grand Canyon type huge structures, you would go ahead and select Z, because that would be the better way to wrap it. That's how like you unwrap a person, something that's taller more than it is wide. But since I'm looking down on it, I'm going to select Y. You guys can always choose one, and if it doesn't look right when you get to the UV editor, you can redo it. So from here, I would hit Apply. I should get a line showing me where my new planar maps are, and then I can hit Close. From here, I would then go to UV Editor, select my UVs in this plane by going to right-click UV, and then drag selecting so that I pretty much have this little forest of green dots. After this, I hit Shift and Unfold. And it should unfold them so that the squares are a fairly even size. I'm close, I'm not exact. So maybe in this case, a Z might have worked a little better. I could try it, but I think for my purposes, this will work. The green dots annoy me here, so I'm going to turn face on in this mode too. There we go. And from there I would once again UV planar. I don't need to select all of the steps of planar again. Oh, missed one. Because I've already set it to project on that Y. If I wanted to change it, then I would have to select the box. I keep finding ones I miss. So, third time, right? There we go. And then I go to the UV editor. I would move this one over, whichever one, because this way, when I select the UVs, I can just drag and select instead of worrying about overlapping with the other. This one looks pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and do a, oopsie, Shift Unfold anyway. I have a couple little odd stretches, but the rest seem okay. And then I would just do my third one. Let me go ahead and put this back in face mode so that you're in agreement. Oh, there's a spot I missed. And now I'll just select this riverbed, if I can draw. Apparently is an issue right now. It's not to sound mean. Students have different ways that they like working. And then once again, I go UV editor, get this last piece. Select UV, right click. Oops, I did that. And now shift unfold. If I want, I could select shell mode, and I could move these so that I can kind of tell what's going on a little better. So if I knew I wanted my grass here, my other grass here, and my river here, but you have to remember where they are. From here, you have to make sure that everything is on this lighter gray square, and then go to polygon. All the way at the bottom is UV snapshot. Bless you. I want to browse. I'm going to call it UV out. That's fine. I would set my size to 1024 just because I think that's a good way to draw on it. You can have it PNG if you want it transparent. I find the white lines on transparent are hard to see, so I put it on JPEG. You could color over it in layers the other way, but a lot of times students will leave that white grid on top, and then that imports with it. It doesn't make the white grid that you just did for the UV invisible. You have to color over that. So then you hit OK. And it's like, hey, you didn't select anything to actually export. So yeah, select UV snapshot. Set your settings here. Make sure it's going to your D drive, by the way, and then hit OK. And I have UVs. From here, I can close this, minimize this, and open up Photoshop. So we go to Open. And instead of source images, this actually went just to images. And you'll open up the one that says UV out. I saved mine as UV out JPEG. If we want to do this realistically, what I would do is search for seamless mountain or rock texture or grass texture. I had a seamless rock texture as well, right? Rock texture. And I'm going to find one I like. The repeating nature of grass does tend to make it look a little odder. Like odd, not otter. And so if you have like a fantasy world like Skyrim where things are getting a little dark and it's very trotting across, same with WoW. A lot of times they do those spots of dirt in there because it will make it look a little more worn and a little more gritty. If we're going for a pretty landscape, we might want grass that is more even. Not shiny. A lot of times if you get the brightest green grass you can, your scene starts looking a little nuclear. So do just be careful of that, right? So if I paste this grass on, how big is each of those individual blades of grass? Really big, right? So you would go ahead and free transform it until you think your grass might be a little more of a reasonable size. And that's why this is seamless, is because if it's truly seamless, you can just copy those layers and put it over it.
What I'm doing is to layer one down, open the texture.
Yeah, and I didn't even do a layer one. I just did a copy and paste. So my seamless rock texture, go back to my images. And I want something without insanely dramatic shadows, because you want those shadows to be made by the game, the light in the game. So I think this one might be good. Copy image. I'm probably going to make this one even a little smaller. And it might not be small enough. It's still, and if you get your proportions wrong, you can always come back in Photoshop and redo it. So then I want a sand texture. Or a riverbed. Copy image. So I'm going to do this last part really quick to show you guys. Oh no. Kind of what else you can do. So at this point, once I get my basic colors laid out, I would go to my very bottom UV layer. So I would turn off that background, turn off your reference. Oh, you guys can go. Because what you're going to do is layer merge visible. And all I did was I used this as the raw template. And you know how my colors are here? I want them to have transition between them. So I would just turn it to opacity. And from there, I could go ahead and use this Alt to go ahead and color in those extra parts. So if I wanted to look at a mountain transition, I would color in part of that mountain on the sides. And now instead of having that really kind of harsh edge that I was having before, I'll have a mountain that transitions into grass. Now if you're like, that's why we did all this, is just so that you could have an outline that didn't look square, yes it is. That's how you would do it as a professional. So if you don't care about those kind of square outlines or these nice transitions, or if you have something that's all one solid color, you wouldn't need to do this. This is kind of overkill. Yep. So that we have the ability to draw transitions in between the areas. And maybe I'll bring in something like an old Ocarina of Time, or we can bring in a newer game and kind of figure out what those differences are. So I'm putting a little bit of grass on the side of the waterbed too, the riverbed. And that's really what the purpose of this is so you can draw on and customize textures. Now, many of you are, when we get into Unreal Engine, you're going to hate me. Because Unreal Engine has a way to just make pretty landscapes and sculpt instantly with all the textures on them. You're going to be, LeBaron, why do we do it the other way? So that you could figure out how to customize the look of a World and/or game. And if that's not high on your priority list, if you're really looking at interactivity, you don't have to. From here, I would do a save as. I would save your Photoshop document so that if anything's wrong, you can go back and fix it without all of those things that we just did. Oh. I might also want to add a little bit of a transition for the riverbed to the rock. So let me save again. Then I'll do a save as JPEG. I'm going to do UV map finished. And then how I put that into Maya is I just do a simple blend texture. So create blend, material blend, or whichever texture you want. In the color, load that file that I just made. So it's actually in images. And I'm going to hit 6 to see it, and then physically drag that on, and it will map everything to the right area. And that's what this whole procedure is for.